ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. We begin this Jumu'ah khutbah with an acknowledgement which allows us to give total and complete praise to Allah,
entry and exit tones are off,
who is Rabbil Alameen. He is the creator, the guardian, evolver, the keeper and sustainer of all systems of knowledge. We're thankful that Allah has allowed us to be here for another Jumu'ah day on this Friday, August 21st, 2020. And we're going to be saying some things in this particular delivery that you might want to have a pen and paper at least handy in order to take down my number and email address, so that when I conclude, if in the event you like a copy of the audio version of this lecture, you can either call me or email me to that effect, and I will send you a copy for free. Dear beloved people, we are living in the end times. Not for the physical planet or for the physical universe, but we're living in the end times for the world of falsehood. The word false, F-A-L-S-E, shares consonantal connections with the Quranic name Iblees. The letters F and B are interchangeable. In the word false, you have the consonants F, L, S, and in the name Iblees, we have the consonants B, L, S. All words, no matter what the language, which shares consonantal connections, are going to also share meanings. So by virtue of Iblees' very name, he represents falsehood. The root letters in Iblees' name are Ba, Lam, Sin. And that root means to despair or to give up all hope. To give up hope means to become depressed. And the word depress, with its prefix de, but the main part of the word being press, that word press is from the word pressure, or it gives us the word pressure. So the word press and also the word pressure also shares consonantal connections with the words Iblees and false. Pressure will either cause you to give up, as in the case of balasa, which gives us Iblees, or it will cause you to straighten out. If you press your clothes, you're pressing out the wrinkles, and it causes your clothing to become straightened out. You can give it a crease. You make them look nice. If you're pressing your hair, ladies, and let's hope it's only the ladies, it causes the curls or the kinks in the hair to also become straightened out. In fact, I think you call it straightening your hair, but it's because you are pressing your hair. So pressing can go one of either ways. It can cause you to give up hope, as in having too much pressure in your life, or the things that are pressing upon you as concerns can cause your life to become straightened out. So pressure is the factor. When Muhammad the Prophet received the first revelation via Jibreel, it was said that Jibreel squeezed him. They say that he pressed him 3 times. And this is true for every human being. every human being is pressed in three major areas of their human life. We're pressed physically with physical challenges. As we continue to grow, we become pressed and even impressed on the emotional level. And we are then pressed on the intellectual level. So again, like Muhammad the Prophet, who is the example for all times, for all human beings, whatever he went through is what each and every one of us have been consigned to by God. He was pressed on three levels, and all humans are pressed on three levels: physically, emotionally, and intellectually. Our prophet met the challenges of the pressure on these three levels, and it is our job to do the same. All we need to do is follow the Quran's strategy for meeting the challenges. Now, those who are giving up to the pressure of today's circumstances are consigning their souls to what Imam W.D. Muhammad called the Great Elimination. He called the day that we're living in the day of the great elimination of the human soul. Now, those who are using this COVID-19 reset period as an opportunity to straighten out their lives and the lives of their families, they will experience not the great elimination, but the great illumination. And it will be the illumination of the human soul, as opposed to the elimination of the human soul. But we first must understand what is meant by the terms human and soul. Now, in case you're wondering why my lectures do not sound like the typical khutbah, it is because my lectures are designed to put the kind of pressure on your nervous system and on your brain that will force it to come alive. Allah created the human being to be a thinker. Not only a thinker, but Allah created the human being to exist as an abstract thinker. The English word thinker is related to the Arabic word dhikr, and dhikr means to remember something by thinking on it repetitively. Allah says that thinking on God, thinking on Allah, is the greatest objective within the human mind. Now that's a paraphrase, but that's exactly what it means. Thinking on God is the greatest objective within the human mind. But again, it is referring to the ability in the mind to register abstract thoughts on a repetitive basis. Abstract is the opposite of concrete, and concrete refers to things that your five basic physical senses can experience. So if you can see it, taste it, touch it, feel it, or hear it, that is a part of the concrete experience. All living creatures have that capacity. But the human being, as far as we know, is the only creature created to operate above that capacity by registering ideas within the abstract parts of the mind. Abstract language is called figurative language. Figurative language is language that needs to be figured out. You get it? Figurative, figure. Figurative language, I repeat, is language that needs to be figured out. You have to think on it. You have to contemplate it. You have to repeatedly go over it in your mind in order to get the true understanding out of figurative language. The word figure comes from the word fig. And a fig is a fruit which can be easily chewed, and it contains multiple seeds. Chewing is symbolic of the mind's ability to thoroughly investigate an idea or concept. When making an important decision, we sometimes ask to chew on it. Let me chew on that for a minute. Seeds are symbolic of ideas, and all ideas are based on abstract thoughts. I'm trying to get you to see the importance of your human self as being an abstract person and not merely a concrete or physical person. Your ideas are your ID, and your ID is what identifies you. And therefore, your true identification is essentially abstract, not concrete. When you give a person your height and your weight and the color of your eyes and all of those physical descriptions, you're giving them descriptions of your concrete self. But your concrete self can be what other people's concrete selves are. They can be your height, they can be your weight, they can be your complexion, they can have your color, eyes. So in that sense, there are many people who can be identified on the concrete level in almost exactly the same ways. But none of us share identical abstract personalities. And it is your abstract self, I repeat, that is the true you, operating within the concrete or the physical body. Your physical body is not the real you. Now, when examining the Quran, when God refers to your nafs, translated as soul, when he refers to your nafs in the Quran, it is a reference to the invisible you within. It's not a reference to your flesh and blood. Allah actually in the Quran references speaking to our nafs even before the creation of our biology or our physical flesh and blood. At the point where we made an agreement, Allah asked us the question, am I not your Rabb? Am I not your Lord? Am I not your creator, your evolver, and the one who sustains you? And all of the souls prior to these bodies being created agreed in unison, yes indeed. When God uses the term al-insan, meaning the human being, again, it is a reference to invisible qualities of human excellence or the lack thereof that are operating within you. Allah says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. Certainly, most assuredly, we have created al-insan, the human being, in the most excellent of organizational designs. See, that's inside of you. It goes on to say, ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. Thereafter, much longer, much later, thereafter, we have reduced him to the lowest ebb, the lowest of the low, in terms of his retraction away from that excellence, if he chooses, if she chooses to do so. So both the human being's rise and fall are taking place mostly on the abstract level. This world attempts to give us this same wisdom through nursery rhymes such as Jack and Jill going up the hill and fetch a pail of water. Jack falls down, breaks his crown, and Jill comes tumbling after. It's the same story, the rise and the fall of the internal person. They give us Humpty Dumpty, who sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. See, the rise and fall of Humpty Dumpty. They give it to us also in Jack and the Beanstalk. He goes up the beanstalk and he comes back down with a product from the goose who laid a golden egg. It's speaking to your human excellence, but on the abstract and symbolic levels. So all of these stories involve an ascension and a declension, or a declining. The Bible's depiction of Jesus' death and resurrection is speaking to the same phenomenon. He dies, he's resurrected, he returns to the heavens, and then he returns eventually to the earth. It's speaking to the same phenomenon, the rise and fall of your human excellence and potential. It is the abstract or the invisible you operating within your body that is the true and essential you. Stop looking at that person that you're seeing look back at you in the mirror thinking that that is the real you. That's the superficial you. That's the body that was created as your buddy to assist you in your sojourn throughout this particular level of life. But that face looking back at you in the mirror is not you. It's not the essential you. The essential you cannot be captured within a mirror. The essential you is captured within the context of your emotionality and the context of your instinctive drives, and also within your intellectual movement, how you think as a thinking person, a person of dhikr. So the takeaway point in this first part of the khutbah is that if you are not thinking consciously, using your mind's ability to think on an abstract level regarding your life and the life of others, then you, according to this language, are not technically human. That's my first point. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار, as we pause for the cause. We begin once again, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Human beings must come into a better idea of what it means to be human. The word human means humus, mind, H-U-M-U-S, mind. And humus represents soil that has been conditioned by moisture. Humus, I repeat, represents soil, S-O-I-L, that has been conditioned by moisture. If the soil is dry soil, there will be no growth from the earth. I wonder sometimes whether there's a play on the word Negro that represents the idea of no grow or no growth. I wonder. It is the water content that allows for the productivity to come up out of the soil. So if there's no water added to that dry soil, there will be no growth coming out of that soil. Now, dear believers, when you hear the word soil, I want you to think soul. They are essentially the same word. English has hidden most of its more precious concepts in combinations of words that share consonantal connections, such as soil and soul. So again, when you hear the word soil, I want you to think about soul. All of the conditions which make the soil the ideal environment for growth are the same conditions for the soul's growth, but on an abstract level. So whatever you have to do to get the plant to germinate, the seeds to germinate, to become produce or to become the plant that you then harvest, you need to plant it in humus soil, which means that your soul has to have water content You have to plant the seed and allow for the sunshine to reach it. And sunlight is indicative of knowledge. Knowledge, being exposed to the social environment that the sun impacts on a daily basis. Your soul also has to be exposed to the social environment. The word social itself comes from the word soul. So if you are being desensitized as a social creature, you're actually being desensitized to that which God has created you to be, that is responsible for the greatest level of your soul's development. So you better be careful when people start asking you to social distance yourself. Be careful even of the language, because Allah created the human being to be what is called gregarious. That means we love to socialize. So if you're not factoring in any kind of compensation for your lack of camaraderie and your lack of interfacing with people and your lack of one-on-one involvement and engagement with people like yourselves, if you haven't factored in what to do as a compensation for what's being robbed of your nature and taken away from you, then you had better get busy, Muslim, Quranic thinker, at investigating your Quran for the answer to how not to allow your very human nature to become imbalanced and upset and depressed, for that matter. Again, if the soil is dry, there will be no growth coming from the earth. And it is the water content in the soil that allows for the productivity to come up out of the soil. When it comes up out of the soil, we call that growth produce. And when growth comes up from out of the soul, we call that production. Out of the soil, it's called produce. Out of the soul, that growth is called production, human production. Human beings should want that their souls be productive. It is the non-productive soul that becomes the victim of elimination. The word man means mind. Man does not mean your physical self or your physical body. It does not mean male as a biology or as a gender. Man is included in both the words man and woman, because both of these genders are minds, thinking beings. And both of these words, man and mind, are related to the word moon, M-O-O-N. And the moon emits a light that it cannot claim as its own. The sun's light can claim that light as its own. The starlight, many of them are suns, more distant away than our physical sun that we experience. But the moon, they say, is merely reflecting the light of the sun. So the moon cannot claim that light for itself. In the same way, the mind, which was named after the moon, the mind emits knowledge that it cannot claim as its own. If you have a degree in your back pocket, you can't claim that you were born with that. If you have a wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of particular subjects, fine, but you cannot claim that you invented that wisdom or that you were born with that wisdom. You got every single thing except for your instincts. You got it from somewhere else. Even how you feel about things, you got that watching how other people feel about that same thing. It's not yours to claim, but particularly those things that you say you know. So no matter how high we grow in terms of knowledge and understanding, it should keep us humble, knowing that none of it is our own doing and that all of it essentially came from outside of ourselves, just like the light of the moon comes from outside of itself. Knowing this should keep us all humble. And even the word humble, Humble, is related to the word humus. Water is symbolic of balanced emotions. Remember, the soil has to have water content. And therefore, the soul has to have balanced emotionality in order to become productive. Healthy moral thinking is also what water is symbolic of, and water is also symbolic of the clear truth. Nobody wants to drink water that has specks of something foreign floating around in it. And when people are gravitating toward the truth, we want what the courts call the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Just like you want nothing but pure water in the drinking glass. We're talking about what makes for the most productive soul, so that the soul does not have to become, unfortunately, eliminated in this great day of elimination. So when you add those factors into the soul, you will have production in every aspect of your life. When you seek to achieve emotional balance, like water seeks to be level, when you seek moral purity, moral equilibrium, moral clarity, that adds to the production of the soul. And when you seek the clear truth and nothing but the truth, you are helping your soul maintain its equilibrium, and you are also assisting your soul in its efforts to reach higher levels of expression, in the same way that water, once coming in contact with the pure sunshine, begins to rise and transmute and become clouds and become that which will eventually come back down to earth and service the needs of all living creatures. Isn't that beautiful? But if we fail to pay attention to the soul's needs, we will then be responsible for our own demise or elimination. Now listen very carefully as I go further into this part 2 of my khutbah. Repeating the words of Imam W.D. Muhammad, we are in fact living in the day of the great elimination. His words. The word eliminate is from the word lumen, Lumen, which means to give light. This word is actually from the Arabic word lawama, and lawama is the midway point in the soul's journey towards Jannah. Jannah means the garden, the paradise. Beneath lawama is a level of the soul's journey called nafsin la'amara, which means the insisting soul, the commanding soul. You might even say the instinctive soul. Your instincts are always commanding you. Eat, drink, rest, work. Those are instinctive drives. Flee, fight. Those are instinctive drives. And above nafsin lawama is a development of the soul called nafsin mutma'inna, translated as the soul at rest. We're at a resting period right now called the reset. Reset, if you take the second E out of it, it says rest. We're at a resting period with this COVID-19 episode. So that says to me that all of us have an opportunity to make it into Jannah. Because the next stage in the soul's development after the soul being at rest is Jannah. But it's only open to those who are choosing to be workers. Allah says, enter ye my garden, but you can't enter it unless you agree to be one of the workers, not one who is sitting by idly in the wrong kind of rest. The rest that we need to come into right now is the resting of everything that we know we have no business participating in. Even if it's just certain ideas in the mind that we need to concentrate on getting rid of. Unnecessary foolishness, hatred, distress, depression, backbiting, all of those things that the Quran speaks against in this period of rest or reset. We should be visiting all of those ideas in a way which will allow us to gradually sift through them and methodically eliminate each and every one of them, so that the soul can come into Jannah as Allah outlines it in the Quran. So this nafsin lawama, which again is where we get the word lumen, which is where we also get the word eliminate. E in the beginning of a word means to get rid of. It means to exit out. It means to take out, to lead out. So it's the elimination of the lumen, or the illumination, or the illumination. That's what the elimination represents. The doing away with the illumination in you. Allah created you to be illumined. So if you want to survive the elimination, pay attention to what needs to be done at the midpoint, or the threshold. That's what lawama means. It means threshold. It's where we also get the English word limit. Limit. When you reach the limit, you've reached the threshold, and now you have to make a decision whether you're going to cross that threshold into something that God is not pleased with you participating in, or whether you're going to backtrack, take a good look at what's going on around you and in others around you, and decide on what the best method might be to help yourself and also to help those who may be experiencing the same kinds of issues and struggles and challenges and problems that you're facing. It's time to go deep, deep, deep within your human soul and rescue yourself, rescue your family from the fire. The word lawama also gave us the English word lemon. Lemon. And a lemon gives you a sour taste, but it can be sweet if you add the right flavorings. It can be made to give you the satisfaction of sweetness if you add honey or some sugar or something of that sort. The middle point that we're discussing in my conclusion, in the human being's development, is the emotional nature. The emotional nature is above the instinctive nature, but below the intellectual nature. It's right smack dab in the middle. That's why it needs to remain concentrated on balance. Allah speaks about that balance throughout the Quran. He says, and guard the middle prayer. And Allah says He has created us as a midway community. The emphasis, I repeat, in the Quran is on neither of the extremes, but it is always on the balance as a focus. If you guard the middle point, if you're careful When at the threshold between the two, you can then come into the great illumination, where your life becomes illumined, and you will therefore survive the great illumination, because the illumination is meant only for those who do not choose to consciously guard over the condition of their souls. And it is really that simple. The guard that you need standing at the threshold of your soul's concerns is called taqwa. I spoke on this the last time I gave this khutbah over these lines, and inshallah we'll open that up further the next time I speak in about, I believe, 2 weeks. I think I'm scheduled to speak every other week, inshallah. So with that said, I'm concluding today's khutbah and I'd like to give my email address for any of you in the listening audience, or anyone who may have missed it that you know of that you might want to send a copy to. I'm going to give you an email address that if you just send me a request, I will free of charge send you the clear audio copy of today's discourse. So my email address is cosmicquran1@gmail.com. I'm going to spell it out once. COSMIC1, that's the number 1, at gmail.com. And my number is 516-300-2257. And I'm supplying my number in the event that you want any further information on what it is I do outside of Jumu'ah, classes, lectures, etc. And you can call me, and I'd rather you email me first with those requests, and if necessary we'll have a conversation. So with that said, we say Allahumma salli ala Muhammadan wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim wa barakallah Muhammadan wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidu Majid. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you to David Hassan for sponsoring these weekly Jumu'ah. You can call this number every week at 1:30 p.m. and be in touch with a weekly presentation by various imams around our association and around our country, the country and outside of the country. So feel free to take advantage of that opportunity. And you should, wherever you are, call your own iqamah. And if you have enough people to make the standard salah, you should do so. And if you do not have enough people, you should make the dhuhr salat, salatul dhuhr, the standard salat to come at this particular part of the day. Once again, this is Imam Benjamin Bilal, in case you didn't know my name, and I'm honored to have participated in today's Jumu'ah services. As I greet you in the greetings of peace that obligate each and every one of us to keep the peace. Salamun alaykum.